Hi, I'm Michael, and this is California. And over the weekend, I finally got a chance to look at the PPP Loan Forgiveness Application that got released last week. And so I'm going to go over a couple points that I thought were interesting and clarifications about how they are going to forgive the loan and what they're going to include in that forgiveness part. Additionally, we're going to talk about a press conference that President Trump had on Monday, and where he gave some perspective on what he thinks could potentially change in the PPP loan, specifically about dates as far as extension, as well as percentages that can be forgiven. Now, before we do that, if you like this information, if you find it useful, if you find it helpful, please don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you can get updates when our newest and most informative videos become available. So over the weekend, I got an opportunity to look at the PPP Loan Forgiveness Application. And there's some interesting things on there that I had not seen before or really had anticipated when we initially applied for the loan. So the first thing was an alternative payroll covered period. So it's going to allow companies to use payroll periods that are outside of those immediate 8 weeks after they got their loan. So if you had a different payroll that doesn't line up with that, you could utilize that alternate payroll period to qualify for the loan. Luckily, ours did, so we didn't have to use the alternative periods. That makes it pretty easy. Also, there's eligible payroll and non-payroll expenses that can be included. So again, when we applied for the PPP loan, we anticipated utilizing our payroll as the reason for getting everything forgiven. That would be the majority of the funds that would be forgiven. But it's nice to see that if you don't have all payroll in there, you can add other things that are not payroll expenses that can also be included for forgiveness. And then finally, there are exemptions from loan forgiveness reductions based on rehiring by June 30th, and exemptions for good faith written offers for rehires that were declined. So essentially, initially, when you had the PPP loan, it was ideally to keep all your employees. But if you did let go any of those employees within that 8-week period, then you would get a reduction in how much of your loan could be forgiven. So in here, there's an exemption saying that if you bring those employees back by June 30th, then it won't reduce the forgivableness of your loan by as much as it would have had you not brought them back. Also, there is, again, for the good faith effort to try to bring employees back, there are people out there, not us, because all of our employees stayed with us, but there are people out there and small business owners who are experiencing a situation where they're trying to get their employees to come back, and their employees are saying, no way, we're not going to come back because, one, either I'm concerned about my health, or two, I'm getting $450 on unemployment plus $600 PUA money every week. Why would they want to come back right away? They might wait out PUA and then come back once that expires, or wait out the health pandemic and come back once that expires as well. So it seems like there are people out there who are trying to get their employees to come back and they're not. And I think that it's good that there are exceptions within the application if you have documented cases that you try to bring your employees back and they say, no, we're not going to do it. But ultimately, the big question is, should we have done the PPP loan, right? At this point, looking back, it's not exactly clear whether it was a good idea or not, for a couple reasons. One is that when we applied, it was pretty straightforward. But now that we get down to the point of forgiveness, it's starting to get a little bit more complicated about what counts and what doesn't count. Also, if we can't get the forgiveness to the amount that we had anticipated getting, then we've really put ourselves in a tight spot as a small business. Essentially, we've shackled ourselves with debt for the next couple of years that we wouldn't have had normally, let alone the fact that everything is still slowed down. So we try to do the right thing to keep all of our employees going and employed and the doors open and the lights on. But if we can't get it forgiven, then it means not only did we pay those employees during that time frame, now we also have more debt that we didn't initially anticipate having. So at this point, I still think it's the right choice, but we'll have to see by the time it comes down to the brass tacks when we actually get whatever portion of our loan forgiven, what the amount looks like, and we'll have to make a decision then if it was the right decision or not. So on Monday, President Trump had a meeting with business leaders to talk about PPP. And the first thing that came up was extension of the PPP. Now, Trump kind of sidestepped and said, you know what, I thought that deductibility would probably be much higher on your list than getting an extension for the weeks that you can get forgiven for PPP. But he said it shouldn't be a problem to extend it. Now, his advisor, Steve Mnuchin, stepped in and said that there is a technical fix, whatever that is in the works, that's bipartisan, that could potentially extend the amount of time that businesses could have to utilize the PPP funds to be forgiven from 8 weeks, maybe up to 24. He didn't say maybe all the way 24, but 24 is where everyone's kind trying to lean in, so I'm hoping that's where it's going to be. But he said it's definitely possible, but of course it would take bipartisan agreement, which he says they have. Some other sides of it that would be interesting are for protections for frivolous lawsuits. I know that's something that Trump has been talking about over some time and definitely could do some good for small businesses who are in the situation, or even large businesses for that matter, who are in the situation where they face those kinds of things all the time. As well as the one thing that I thought was most important is finding a way to change the forgiveness percentage from 75 to maybe a larger amount. That would really help out a lot of businesses right now who maybe are concerned about being shackled with debt after they had got into this whole process under one exemption and then finally start to see the specifics and realize that maybe not all of what they thought is going to be forgiven. So I think that it seems that there is some appetite to make those changes. You definitely see in the House and the Democratic side, there's a lot of appetite for it, as far as the HEROES Act also includes extensions for the PPP as well as more money. But I mean, ultimately it's going to come down to whether everyone can agree, and hopefully it'll come out to the point that it'll help out small businesses like me and like you and like everybody else out there. So needless to say, one thing is certain. There is going to need to be more resources for small businesses for a couple reasons. First is that small businesses are what's going to get this economy back on its feet. We represent a huge percentage of the businesses in America, and it's through us that most people get their employment, and also a lot of people patronize. That's where the money goes once they spend it. It goes to small businesses. So it's really necessary to have additional resources, maybe more forgiveness and more PPP money for small businesses to get us going. Now, the other thing is that even if the lockdown ends today, there's going to be a substantial amount of time before people are willing to come back to the businesses and patronize us, right? There's going to be a substantial amount of time for a couple of reasons. One is because they've gotten in the habit of not doing it. And then two is because they're concerned about their health. Without a vaccine, it seems like a lot of folks are maybe not going to be willing to go out of the house until they can know they're not going to get sick when they leave their house. So needless to say, there's going to be a large period of time that needs to be covered where people are not coming into businesses, but we need to have the funds to keep the businesses open. The second side to that is even all the employees that small businesses bring back, they're going to start paying them, but those first paychecks, they're not going to go to frivolous spending. They're going to go to utilities. They're going to go to the necessities. And so it's going to take some time before those people have all their previous debt from the last couple of months paid off before they can start spending on other things that are not necessities. So needless to say, it's going to be a decent amount of time before we start seeing serious patronage getting back to 100% for small businesses, which is more reason than ever why we need additional resources, additional forgiveness, and more money for the PPP. Thank you so much for watching our video. I really hope that you found this video interesting or useful or maybe even helpful. And if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you can get updates when our newest and most informative videos become available. Also, if you have any comments, you have any questions, leave them down below. We'd love to see your comments and questions, and we'll be happy to make a new video or a new post to answer them as soon as we can. Now, finally, we here at California, we know health insurance. Whether it's Covered California or Medicare or Medicaid or Medi-Cal or even health insurance for a small group, we know health insurance. And if you're here in California, our services are 100% free. Now, I know it can be very confusing sometimes going from work insurance to private health insurance, or maybe you're turning 65 and trying to figure out what are the best Medicare options for you. That is exactly what we can do. We can help you walk through that process, look at the different plans, look at the benefits, and help you figure out which plan best fits your need. So if you have a question about your health insurance, leave a comment or question below, and we'll be happy to help with that as well. Now, other than that, I am Michael, and this is California, wishing you a happy, healthy day.